Okay, so it's time to jump back into the spoilers, the cards revealed, and discuss them, right? Now, we'll probably just stick down here with the expansion slot cards. We'll wait till we get a bunch more of the main Mystic or Insect cards, right? We have gotten some pretty powerful Majestics, which, I look forward to talking about. But yeah, we'll focus on the mech, the wizard, and the card numbers. So, few questions. 231. What do you reckon is the chances that it is legs? Right, I'm probably going to say it is just going to be Mechanologist legs, which I think is a bit of a pill, right? Because it's like, why are so many slots Mechanologist, especially showing up something that was an obvious weakness from the very beginning by way of Arcane Barrier? But I would bet on them printing legs, right, and Evo something to fit this bill, blue instant speed, Evo equipment. So yeah, 231 is probably Mechanologist, means that 5 cards are Mechanologist. Now the other big question is 238. What do you think this is, right? Could be an Eloquence token, maybe. The tokens could also be prior to the cracked bubble. It's hard to say because Bright Lights, the Quicken token, was the last slot, mostly because it was an alternative art. Heavy Hitters, the tokens were before cracked bubble, but they were also in set mechanics, right? Nothing mentioned here. In fact, we didn't even get, say, silver tokens with the Great McCall, but none of these really generate the tokens, right? Do they? I don't even think the Runeblade generates. No, none of these. Well, never mind. We get a Ponder token generation. It's not featured. Now, obviously, that makes sense because these tokens aren't necessary for the set. So my money is actually on a reprint. And why do I say that? Well, if we count the cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And we look at the little blurb for part the Mistveil expansion slot. The expansion slot returns with 13 new cards, covering a range of heroes and classes outside of those featured in part the Mistveil. So 13 cards. We already have 13 cards, leaving 238 as, again, either a token letdown or a reprint. But the question is, what reprint would be needed in this set, right? Off the top of my head, equipment doesn't really come to mind, so it's not necessarily a reprint that factors into the set. So then what about play? And they've done a very good job in terms of equipment of spreading things out. The only real reprint that probably comes to mind that would benefit the set is probably an Art of War, right? Inline Strike is a maybe, but I don't think they touch Inline Strike. Command and Conquer is the promo for the whole deathmatch shenanigans, so I don't think they reprint that. But at the same time, Command and Conquer is also the big one at the moment, right? Inline Strike has fallen down. Command and Conquer still just has tremendous use across the board because of, again, the clear-cut arsenal destruction versus, for instance, the new cards that they printed in Brutes, where it is conditional and doesn't always hit every card in the arsenal slot like Command and Conquer does, right? So in Brute, it has to A, hit, do enough damage to then discard, was it an attack action? Was the new one in the KO Armory deck, right? Strength rules all. So yeah, Command & Conquer is an interesting choice. I think we might be upset, but it might also be necessary. But I could also see it being Art of War, since there is, a lot of potential for Art of War in this set, and that would be interesting. Either way, right? My money is on it being a reprint, and hopefully not just an Eloquence token, because this does have create, and anytime they say create, that's usually what happens. But then we also have create a hyperdriver, and there is not 2 slots available unless the hyperdriver goes here. The other thing we can do is we can guesstimate what this card is. 235, right? Well, even 231. 231 can only be a Nevermind, right? So Flesh and Blood, LSS, they usually follow the same trend of card delivery. It's kind of weird if you think about, so Assassin got bumped to the first slot if you look at Bright Lights, Heavy Hitters, or any of the supplemental sets. Assassin, most likely because it's A, but then it follows the release structure. So we go Brute, Guardian, Ninja Warrior, then Mechanologist, Ranger, Runeblade, Wizard, followed by Illusionist, then the subtype, so Draconic, Draconic Illusionist, Draconic Ninja, Light, Light Warrior, Light Illusionist, then Shadow, Shadow Brute, Shadow Runeblade. So what that means is if we go and look at this chart, right, from Wizard to Shadow Brute, this card could be a Illusionist card. Nope, because that would probably be in set, because it doesn't have to be here, right? If it's just a stock stand Illusionist card, unless it's a spec, but I would assume it's not, right? Prism is obviously what comes to mind. So then we have Draconic. Now only Fae is available, so I don't think it would be Draconic, right? So Draconic Illusionist is a definite no. Draconic Ninja is a maybe, but I think highly unnecessary. Then we have Light Illusionist, and Light Warrior, and that's probably where my money is, right? A Boltyn card. Even though we're getting the Boltyn Armory deck, right? I feel like they're really trying to pop him up and make him absolutely, you know, one of the higher ends, right? Again, sort of, it works as like a best case scenario, right? If they make him more meta relevant before the Armory deck comes out, then the Armory deck itself is more relevant. So I could see it being Boltyn support. Otherwise, it only really leaves either another Shadow Brute card or a Shadow card, right? So yeah, 231. I'm probably going to say it's Mechanologist. It's just going to be the legs, right? If it's not, it's just a Hyperdriver token. Either way, in my eyes, it's a Mechanologist card. So again, 5 of the slots going to Mechanologist is it's kind of sad. There can also only be 1 token because we're talking about new cards. It has to be 13. So again, one, you know, this can be a token or this can be a token, but they both can't be tokens. Then again, 235. My money would be on a Boltyn card, right? Maybe just a Light card and hit both Boltyn and Prism. I could also see that, or it could just be, you know, a niche lore card. I'm pretty sure they completely misstepped, and there is never enough room for lore cards because people are just going to be upset, right? Everyone else gets these really tech goodies that help further their decks, and then, you know, slay. Yeah. So I don't think we will really see lore cards at all unless we get to the point where everyone is completely stable. Again, I would really love to see a lot more cards dedicated to the expansion slot. But yeah, Mechanologist, Light or Light Warrior, and then Eloquence or a reprint is my guess. But anyway, onto the cards. So we'll talk about Kindle first. Kindle is a insane card no matter how you look at it, right? The amp is one thing, but then the fact that you have, if you have no cards in hand, draw a card, it being instant speed, meaning you can A, play it, and then dump your hand with Kano's ability, right? It's the simplest metric to always get the draw effect off. You can also stash one in the arsenal, stash one in your hand, play both, right? Draw off one, again, use Kano's ability. So altogether, Kindle is just, to me, an auto-include in almost every Wizard deck. Yes, there is that feel bad where, you know, it's top of the deck, you Kano and you hit it and it does nothing because it's not a non-action card. But altogether, it's a 0, it's instant, it's a draw card that you can use on your opponent's turn. It's insane. Kindle is a fantastic card, right? I can't see it ever being bad. Maybe, you know, point me out if it is, but even top decking it, right? Draw it, and then you've got, again, a +1 and damage to use on your opponent's turn. Again, dump your hand, activate Kindle, get another card. Yeah. Okay, so then the big one is the Evo set. Now, I am mildly disappointed in Supercell. One simple change, and I would have loved it for the combo shenanigans, but overall it is still a good card. So it puts X Steam counters on X target hyperdrivers you control, which is insane, right? So if you pay 3, we'll use 3 as a scenario since that is a 3 clause. If you pay 3, it means you get to put 3 Steam counters on 3 different hyperdrivers. That's already ridiculous. Followed up by create a hyperdriver token with 3 Steam counters, right? Then, if you have 3 or greater, you may shuffle a construct, Nitro Mechanoid from your banish zone back into your deck. This is where, again, I'm mildly disappointed, because if it was just shuffle a construct from your banish zone into your deck, right, this would then make Singularity a possibility again, right? Because you could run 3 copies of this, 1 copy of Singularity, and if you feel bad, you know, boost away a Singularity, Supercell can help you get back, but unfortunately it is specifically construct Nitro Mechanoid. So yeah, so that is disappointing, but it is still a insane card for Max. Now, obviously their philosophy with the expansion slot is to target the low-end, you know, players of the board. So, right, Max and Klloo, right down here. Same with Riptide. We have, I guess it kind of impacts Dash. Does Dash want to, I mean, we'll get into them, but all 3 pieces of the Evo equipment are fairly decent from my perspective. Of course, we got Shadow Runeblade, we got Shadow Brutes, right? I guess Prism, a light illusionist card, wouldn't be so bad, and then they leave the Boltyn stuff. But yeah, I mean, Boltyn's picked up a decent chunk of points, right, in the late season. So, I mean, Guardian, but Guardian would have been above here, most likely. So I do think, well, yeah, right. So I do think, you know, it's probably light at the very least. But anyway, I digress. Supercell, fantastic card, right? Super upside. Run 3 of it. It's just an auto include. It's a blue pitch ball. The 2 block is, its weakest element, but again, you pay 1. And this is still put 1 steam counter on 1 hyperdriver and create another one. That in itself is already super strong, right? And then again, 2, 3, this statement right up here, the steam counters on X is just insane to me, right? You could really just pump up and maintain so many hyperdrivers, and it really furthers, Max's ultimate goal of just having this huge board of hyperdrivers, which then also makes, God, what was the card? The one I really want to make a combo out of, and I might now because of Supercell, the one that you use the hyper drivers to do more damage. There we go, Moonshot. So Moonshot is placed only if you're boosted. That's additional cost, destroy X hyperdrivers you control. When the stacks gets +3 for each hyperdrive destroyed this way, and if it has 10 or more, then it gains overpower, right? So you need to, destroy 3, right? So that'll get you 9, that'll make it a 12. And that does seem a lot more doable now. Again, the X was the big thing, but if you're boosting and generating the resources off the hyperdrivers, I think that's a lot better, right? Is there a hyperdriver? Because I do sometimes forget exactly how cards work, and I believe hyperdriver is generate resources when you boost, not minus cost, right? If I remember correctly, we will just double check that before I make a fool of myself. So hyperdriver is once per turn when you boost a card. Yeah, remove steam counter and gain the resources. So again, if you flood the board, right, off of Supercell, it's at least recover a 1 resource, but you'd probably pump the board, wait, do some other stuff. Still, you'll have more than enough steam counters on the hyperdrivers you control to get them past that turn, right? And then, Arsenal, a Moonshot maybe, and have that as your finisher. Either way, it is definitely a stronger and more viable game plan. Now, as for the actual Evo equipment, right away, it's a 0 cost, instant, and blue. So that is by itself, to me, strong enough to be played, right? Then you chuck in the effect. So when it's equipped, put up to 1 Mechanologist action card in Bash Zone on top of your deck. Great. Chess piece. When it's equipped, the next attack action card you play this turn costs 1 less to play. Also great. Again, as Klloo, you save them, and you can have this big swing turn, right? You know what you're boosting away. Does that matter? No, you'd probably want to draw it, right? I'm trying to think about the ordering, but yeah, there's definitely shenanigans to be had. And then even the arms, so when it's equipped, deal 1 damage to any target. That in itself is probably the weakest so far. But again, as a clearer, right? 1 damage to stuff on the board, 1 damage to pop a ward effect maybe. I don't know. Maybe they could have done something more flexible with the damage, right? Maybe, depending on how many Evos below it was, how many times you could ping or something like that. But either way, the fact that, again, it's instant, 0. I mean, just for singularity, again, I always look at things through a combo lens. I love them. And in terms of actual play, Arcane Barrier, so that's fantastic. It means Kano's not just an auto-concede. But you do have the caveat of having to obviously find them and then equip them, so that still is a huge detriment, but it's definitely a lot better. And whatever the legs are, right? Some version of Go Again, which would be interesting. I don't know. I feel like it'd be just generate an action point. That's the simplest, but then that kind of overshadow the Steel Soul, would it not? Yeah, which is just gain an action point. So I'm curious, what the legs will be. Again, I'm fully betting that it will actually be legs, but yeah. Instant speed, right? Blue, 0 cost, makes them viable in Max, makes them viable in Klloo, just significantly better. It's definitely sort of the balancing in terms of, pitch to cost, right? That all the others should have had to actually make them usable. Again, Steel Soul, because once you have them equipped, you can either continuously equip them or their blue pitchables makes them a lot more viable than some of the other sets, unfortunately, right? Even like the Breaker sets. I believe some of them get played, but obviously the distinction of having to consume hyperdrivers is not that fantastic. God, what's the other hyperdriver card? I believe is it the headpiece? I think it's the headpiece. We can just do hyperdriver. It should mention the card. I think it's a headpiece, which again, if they were going to skip an equipment, right, in terms of the expansion slot, right? Either arms because heavy hitters, or head because, there's other viable stuff to run, or I guess chest because you start with the Klloo Foundry, but I don't think Klloo Foundry's run. Again, Mechanologist is not my true cup of tea, right? I want Singularity to work, and, you know, again, they seem great in terms of Singularity. Supercell definitely seems like an insane card for Max, so hopefully means he'll start actually getting some decent points and will become incredibly a lot more viable thanks to one card that you can take, just because it is such a hefty swing, right? It's so many resources through one card. It's just, yeah, it's fantastic. You don't even have to hit the 3. I mean, put 2 steam counters on 2 hyperdrivers and create one with 2. That is kind of already super powerful. 1 is kind of okay, but 2 I think is already more than you probably need, and then 3 is just, it breaks the bank, right? Okay, well, that will probably do it. So yeah, and what bets are you placing?